You are in a business of some sort. You have an online business. Maybe you have physical products or online services, but you went into business most likely to make a positive impact on the world, along with the financial freedom and freedom of time and freedom to do the things that you want to do with the people you want to do them with. There's many reasons you got into business, but you know the rules of business. If you're not growing in your business, then you are dying. But you might be asking, well, how can I get on the trajectory of growth to even make my business and my brand $1 million brand? Or like our guest and I were discussing before we went live, maybe even $1 billion brand. Well, we're going to be talking about that today, and we're going to dive deep into what that looks like with our guest, Dr. Obam Bowen. But before we get there, you know the fee for the broadcast. When you take away any piece of advice or value or philosophy that helps you in any way, or maybe if we even just made you laugh or made you smile, share this show with just one other person who could use it the most, with another sales professional, business owner, whoever it may be. Share this show if you take away something of value. So without further ado, let's talk to our expert today, Dr. Obam Bowen. And for those who don't know Dr. Obam, he was born and raised in Georgetown, Guyana. He is a 20-year retired decorated U.S. Marine who received a Purple Heart as an infantry commander for his service and his wounds sustained in combat. Today, Dr. Bowen is helping entrepreneurs to create and live their legacies. Dr. Obam, it's a pleasure to have you here, my friend. Thank you.
Brandon. It's more than a pleasure to be here, brother. I'm excited. I've been waiting this day, as I said. I cut my workout short to be here this morning, so this will be fun, right?
I love it.
It's crazy because a couple of years ago when I created my routine, right, which is very important for all you viewers, is there that the one thing, like, success is found in your daily routine. My wife had said to me when I created my routine, like, what is it going to take you to break your routine to do anything within the time that you had set for like your morning routine? I was like, an act of Congress. So this morning she's like, I guess this is what an act of Congress looks like. So you should run for office soon, brother.
I love it. You know, I got to tell you, I don't always meet with guests before the show for many reasons. One, time, obviously, but two, right, I like to be surprised when I meet someone. And I'm not worried at all with this conversation because we spoke for like an hour and a half the last time we talked.
Yeah.
And I remember after we talked, I was like, dude, I wish we had been recording this whole thing because this could have been a part 2. But the benefit to those listening is now we're going to be able to get into the nitty gritty of things. We've already talked surface level. We'll be able to dive in. Now, you are in Florida right now. And you're in Florida with your family because you were there for your mastermind.
I was, yeah, indeed. So we were in Miami. We're in Orlando now. So my wife loves warm weather. She's actually from California. And I promised her I would always keep her in warm weather. So for the last probably 10 years before COVID, every 6 months, we'd spend half the year for 6 months really in Hawaii and then come back. So when COVID happened and that took away, you know, Hawaii wasn't letting folks travel as much. So we used Florida as our Hawaii because, you know, we're in driving distance. So whenever I have the chance, we've been here now for almost a month. I let her have it because, as we were saying earlier, I want to please that customer more than all the other customers that I have.
Now, some people might hear that and they're like, well, you know, that's the tough thing, is maintaining a relationship and being there for your family while you are building your business. And they'll struggle to find the balance and they'll sacrifice time with loved ones because of a project or a launch or whatever it is that they're working on. Has that always been something that's been natural for you to prioritize your family above all else, even your clients, or is that something you had to learn?
I have to really calm down to answer that question because it was never natural. It was always the desire, but it never came naturally. There was a point. So I had to learn what quality time was by the definition of my wife instead of the definition of myself. So for me, quality time was, listen, we're together 24/7, 365. That's when I first retired my wife from corporate America in 12. I thought being together was quality time, but my wife was like, your phone is off, nothing is off. That's quality time with me. That took a while to learn. However, what's important though is I learned those principles and those concepts in the military. You have to prioritize. Being a Marine, the Marine Corps has a 5-paragraph order that it adheres to with every single thing you do. Everything falls into that category. So then I did the same thing for my life. And depending on your faith, your religion, whatever you are, I prioritize first God, right? Depending on your religion, God, me, wife, kids, business, everyone else. And in the beginning, it was hard. It was tough. But then I realized with that alignment, if your faith is in order, it doesn't matter what your choice of faith is, then you can take care of you. And some people don't really like the term being selfish, but in order to be selfless, you have to be selfish first. You have to sell out in order to come back and help out, right? Most people don't get that. And then above all else is my wife, because that's my gift. That's my helpmate. You look into like Christianity, the Bible, it says, listen, Eve was created to be Adam's helpmate, not his slave, not his servant, but his helpmate. And then, you know, the whole thing fell because he didn't take responsibility for the actions he had. He blamed the woman, right? So, you know, my wife has been my greatest cheerleader and confidant. So honoring that space is key and important, because at the end of the day, when the hard times hit, and I did have a lot of quiet crying closet moments build in my career. She was the one there most of the times rubbing my back, right? So my wife is Mexican, so she would always rub my back and be like, oh, pobrecito. No one else was there when she was in those quiet crying closet moments. So I have to honor that. And by honoring that, making her that priority is very important. And obviously that priority with her takes precedence over my kids too, because eventually they will grow up and they will leave and they will marry and they will carry on. And who would I leave with? If I give all my time and attention to them, neglecting my wife, I guess I'll have to find another one.
Wow. I love, that's such an interesting prioritization. I think the one that's most interesting that I was going to ask you about until you actually just answered the question before I asked it, which is, how did you decide to put wife before kids? Because a lot of people would think the opposite. And I feel that a lot of people practice the opposite. But like you said, they grow up and they live their own lives, and you've done your role. And now you're left with someone who you didn't make a priority. And I can only imagine how difficult it would be to remake that person a priority after not making them the priority for so many years.
Exactly. You know, you can't, it's like one of those, you can't renege on emotionally scarring your spouse for so long, which is why you see a lot around the world. Couples will stay together for 15, 20 years. The kids grow up and then all of a sudden they say, oh, we grew apart. You don't grow apart. That division happened a long time ago. You just kept it together by your beliefs of, you know what, I want to be here to make sure that the kids are off before something happens. And now that there's no more that responsibility, put it to you this way, Brandon, here's when I realized my wife was literally the keeper. So I've always had this philosophy of sharing this analogy. What would happen if you, me, and a child was at sea, ship goes down, you could only save one, who will you save? A lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but I'm very pragmatic. If you save the child, then for the rest of that child's life, or at least until they're an adult and try to have their own, you're going to basically, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, guilt that child into not choosing you and spending time with you and doing all these things. And when they're off and gone, you're lonely by yourself. Now, if you save your spouse, both of you can grieve that child. You may or may not be able to have another one, but at least you get to do it together and you're with that life partner, right? So when my wife at first, it was a tough one. And she's like the kid. So I explained to her my knowledge. She's like, oh, well, that makes sense. Definitely you. Right. And I was like, damn, I was looking like, she's a keeper. Right. So when she said that, and it showed that, listen, she was choosing me. And it's not because I'm ego driven. It's like, listen, if you're in a relationship, you want the person to choose you. Because at default, I am going to choose you. You are who I chose for life. It's the same thing in business. There's so many times in all my businesses when I chose my business to build and to grow, Many people didn't believe in it. And now I look at them and I'm like, sorry, I'm just going to drink and be quiet because you had this opportunity, right? So, but you didn't take it. You didn't buy in. And it's like, you know, I was reading the Anything Store book with Bezos talking about when he believes so strongly in Amazon and where it's at today, and so many folks who've missed out in the beginning of not taking the opportunity to actually dive in with him and invest with him. And then later on, they found out that they didn't just make a mistake. They made the biggest mistake they could have financially in a business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that alignment sooner than later between two people, especially with the way that you two work together. I mean, she travels with you. She works with you on the business. Does she, like, how invested is she in your own business? And what would you say is the importance of your significant other? Not just saying they have to be all in on your business, but what is the importance, at least in your own life, with them being invested, understanding what's happening, understanding when your events are happening, when you're launching a product, being on that side of things with you? What has the importance been of that?
Man, I'll tell you. So there's two ways I'm going to separate this for a second. So when you're building anything, you need a trusted confidant, someone that will pick you up when you're down or whip your butt when you're acting silly. My wife is that kind of person. She's an Olympic athlete, so she knows how to handle pressure, right? She knows how to actually give it to you when you need it. Most importantly, she knows how to support. So she never always had to be there in the business, but I always wanted a support system and a structure, someone I can trust implicitly, that when they give me their word, it's not biased towards something for them to gain, but it's more towards for me succeeding. So my wife, though, did take an active role in our first 7 businesses that we built. And 3.5 years ago is when I fully learned her value. So we're running 7 businesses simultaneously. Obviously, she's been there, helped me start each of them. And then when we had our daughter, Miracle, right now, 3.5 years ago, which actually 4 years now because she'll be 4 next month. Nice. My wife says, that's it. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be a mother. Again, I just want to take care of the baby, be home. I just want to enjoy this experience. So I said, okay, no problem. Roger that. I'll do that. Let me find another really kick-ass CEO to take over and run things. That didn't happen. It took me finding 7 other women
wow,
to replace her and what she did. And it was that for the first time I realized how powerful it was to have someone that actually believes in your mission and vision for the betterment of it rather than even you or their personal gain.
Do you think that belief is the difference between one person being able to do what 7 people were doing?
Oh, absolutely.
Is it belief?
Brother. Yeah. So in my book, Today's the Day, chapter 4, we talked about belief. Belief regulates how you perform, right? There's no way you can do something unless you believe it, right? Especially for athletes, they win or lose because of the belief. It's not the distance. If you're a distance runner, the distance is the 6 inches between your 2 ears. That's your brain inside. If you believe, right? Even Hill wrote about it. It's in the Bible. You believe whatever the heart or mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So that belief is that conviction. When you think about faith, right? It's really moving beyond the belief and knowing. When you know, like you know, it's like you and I know that we are men. All the things that makes up a man from anatomy, there's no one that can convince you that you're a woman.
Mm.
I mean, you may have some thoughts like, I don't know. You may even change, I don't know, today's world. You might have a surgery, change. Yeah. But at the core, you will still believe and know that you're a man. Doesn't matter what else you do, unless you completely change differently and believe that you're a woman. You may never be able to give birth to kids, though, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah. So belief comes before any kind of physical difference or strategy. Like your story is fascinating because you had a long, successful military career. And by the way, again, thank you for your service. That's
absolutely
20 years. So really, that's my life in the military, is literally like what you've done. But then you decided to go on and create 7 businesses and become an entrepreneur. Like, that belief for you, was your belief in yourself while you were in the military similar to the belief in yourself as an entrepreneur, or were they 2 different things that you had to cultivate individually?
Wow. So I would say the Marine Corps personified my belief system, right? It gave me the chance to concrete things when I think about them, because I used to have a lot of doubt. Being born number 13, so the 12th boy out of 13 kids, 1 girl in our family, my older brothers would always pick on me or would make fun of my decisions and things like that. And in my heart, I believed and I knew differently and always want to. And because of peer pressure from time to time, I might just acquiesce and go back to like, well, maybe not. So I don't know. I don't think so. But becoming a Marine and then basically building that Spartan mentality, that way of really just taking charge of what you must do, not have to, you must. It's a requirement. Right? They built in systems and protocols that gave me the ability, when you say, listen, when you step off from this line, you're coming back. The enemy's not going to take you down. I mean, there's something I used to say, like, I'm not patriotic. I'm not going and die for my country. I'm going to let that bastard be patriotic so he can die for his country. I'm coming back home so I can, right, hang out with my wife and kids. And it's crazy that I said that over and over. It became an affirmation for about 7 years before I end up in Iraq, where I got blown up 3 separate times. I literally flatlined, died 3 separate times. And where am I now? Like, my heart stopped. Getting the Purple Heart wasn't something like, hey, that's not a medal they give out. Just like, hey, you know, you're cool. You can have one, right? The descriptions that you have to bleed in combat, literally die, lose consciousness to get that, or the Congressional Medal of Honor. So receiving that medal and going back, looking at my belief and my speech and those patterns of what I said for years concreted in me the things that so when I came back and I attempted to become an entrepreneur, because I wanted to do what I needed to do, which, by the way, the word is originally French in its meaning. It means one who takes risks. So I was like, listen, put it this way. I can take a financial risk. And how hard is that composed to me taking the risk 5 times a day, 7 months straight in firefights where I'm literally risking my life? I'm like, hey, it can't be that bad, right? Being an entrepreneur. And obviously your risk level with money. And then I went through a very hard transition leaving the military, because I went through a divorce with my first wife. I was basically paralyzed from the waist down, was in a wheelchair for 9 months, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, ended up with depression, suicide ideation, right? So I was living out of my car for a long time. And when I decided to make that switch, it was, listen, how low can one go? It's like, I don't know. I'm already at the bottom. The only way I can go from here is up. So I choose to believe I can do it. And obviously it isn't just a belief. It's belief followed by consistent, persistent, massive action, right? A friend of mine taught me an acronym years ago called AOMO, all out massive momentum, until you get the results you're looking for. So, you know, lack of a better words, I would always say, you know, I'm going to AOMA this mother right now until
So the idea of AOMA, all out massive momentum, that's the idea that even if you're not seeing the result immediately, you are just doing until you begin to see the results.
Exactly. You know, done is better than thinking it's going to get done. I mean, recently they have the song, and I'm not a professional singer, but it goes something like, even if you're not ready for the day, it may not always be night. That's just another way of saying, like, listen, you just got to go until it happens, right? You have to show up consistently with a good attitude over a long period of time with desire and faith, be willing to pay the price. Most importantly, find others who will pay the price with you. And over time, success will take its place, right? And success is really just the progressive realization of worthy ideals. Whatever you deem is worthy, you take that progressive step and you don't stop. Because, you know, faith-wise, I always believe, like, when you get that call, when you get that mission, right, you get that vision from your higher creator, because that's where ideas come from. If you can fulfill them, you just have to become a different person to make sure that that happens. So when that idea comes in, massive action has to take place. If you don't have the belief, well, nothing's going to happen. But you do have that belief, you do have that vision. Now you have to take action consistently and persistently until it actually shows up with the results you want.
Yeah. So you're out of the military now, and then you're literally paralyzed from the waist down for 9 months.
9 months, bro. I gave birth to it all over again.
Oh my God. And you were going through PT at this time? Like how did you become able to move and walk during this time? How long did that take?
You know, around that time, a lot of the philosophy I have now, the things that created the life and businesses and stuff that I have, is like really had to recreate a whole different version of myself, right? That when I remember I was in the hospital in Baghdad, and the doctors were like, you know, you're never going to walk or talk again. And I was like, well, I'm writing down on the little clipboard they gave me because I still had use of my hands. I said, well, you're right. I'm going to run. And I started visualizing myself running and doing all these things again, because for me, I completely did not believe that my career was done. I completely did not believe that that was it. It was over. So I started reading the Bible more and more and more every single day. And then a friend of mine gave me a copy of The Secret, which is basically just being able to manifest your thoughts. And I read a book called The Slight Edge, which is being able to take simple disciplines and turning it into massive success. So those three things I read for the 9 months over and over and over and over and over. And it really started to shape my belief. And the little concept of, listen, I can walk. At first it was being able to see my toes wiggle and watch it and be honest with you, be frustrated, for lack of a better word, be pissed off that I can't even move my toe, right? And I'll tell you, the one thing that changed everything for me was every Thursday. Today's Thursday. Whew, crazy. Every Thursday, I would go in, and the doctors would actually take these needles. They would place them in my spine and start turning around to see if you can get, manipulate the nerves to see what happened. And one day, all I remember was laying down. They're putting the needle, and I normally could see the video, see the scope of what's going on, where the needle is going, and they hit something, and that nerve immediately gave me an erection. And I was like, yo, whatever it is, something is working. Because I remember I didn't have any feeling like waist down. And the first feeling I get was like unsolicited erection. I'm like, listen, y'all need to do that again.
Wow. And you felt that.
I felt that. I was like, yo, do that again. So they're playing around doing whatever. And then eventually they brought in about 23 different doctors and spine specialists and all this other stuff. And they figured something out. And that something out was a treatment. And I just like, if my belief was here, it was no longer, the building had no space for my belief and hope into what was going to happen after that. So it was every single day, relentlessly. I remember sitting on the bed, thinking, willing so much, sweating bullets day in, day out, until I start seeing my toes move, until I start getting the jumps and my knees start going. And I just, I got the little rubber hammer down. I was beating everywhere to make sure that
and you're sitting in this bed, willing with all your might to make your toes move. And all that time, you are visualizing yourself running, you're visualizing your body moving. Was that what you were thinking about in your mind?
Yeah, most of it was really getting back into the fight and helping my Marines. Then it was like I felt like I was letting down my unit, and my guys. It was more like...
So you wanted to get back to...
I wanted to get back in the fight. Because, I mean, you have to understand my mental state at that point, right? So I was thinking, these bastards done took me out of the fight. So I need to get back into the fight. I need to take the fight back to the enemy. And it was disgust. There was so many emotions, but all these emotions, most of it was born out of violence. and a way of getting back at the enemy. So I was completely emotionally charged, right? And pissed off for a very long time. But I learned how to really compartmentalize those feelings, those emotions. I learned how to channel them. You know, when it came time to becoming an entrepreneur, I knew how to, in a sense, repurpose anger. Right? And use, you know, anger and love is on such a thin line. It's the exact same emotional experience, but a different direction of thought. So when, I mean, you think about this very thin line between you loving, taking care of someone, and at times we know people get divorced. Well, something happened so bad that all that love went out the window and turned into a vile action because of what they did, and you can't forgive them. So you don't have the gratitude any longer to withstand that feeling and that emotion. So I took that same thing towards being helpless, being homeless, being pretty much living a life of poverty. And so listen, I'm going to turn this into something. I believe so much. I took action so much. I started reading the books. I started attending the seminars. I started going to the trainings. You know, I watched, well, we didn't have podcasts and things back, you know, 10, 15 years ago as we do now, right? It was so different, but YouTube wasn't even as popular then. So I went to as many seminars. I got involved in direct sales with network marketing. The good thing about that is network marketing is one of the best cultures to teach personal growth and development, right? So every single day I was listening to the tapes and CDs. For the folks, if you're young enough to know what, or old enough to know what those are, you know. If you don't, Google it, you'll find out, right? So it was listening to the tapes and the CDs and reading the books and doing the things necessary. And I remember after like 3.5, 4 years of it, I'm going like, wait a minute, something's got to kick in, and it's getting on my nerves. But I kept believing. But I didn't realize it until I read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talked about
the tipping point.
Of 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
So chapter 2 talks about the law of 10,000 hours. So I started counting up like how many hours I got, right? So it just became now, okay, to get to the path of mastery. And I realized that, well, mastery at that point for me was not being able to earn $1 million. Mastery at that point for me was just being able to break level, to start something and go. So launching the first business was like, listen, as fast as I can put in another 10,000 hours, then I can now master the art of being an entrepreneur. I can master the art of working for myself. I can master the art of coming up with a thought, an idea, and having the discipline and task and things, the tools to do it. Because I spent 20 years receiving orders and fulfilling those orders. Now I'm receiving the orders for myself.
Wow.
But no one taught me how to manage myself around the 24 hours in a day that I had. That's when I came up with the idea of, listen, time management is BS. You cannot manage time. You can only manage yourself. We all have 24 hours in a day, and how you manage yourself around that time creates everything for you, starting with your belief. So then I created what I call my quadrant system of managing myself around the time in the 24 hours. The first and most important was sleep, because I wasn't having enough. I was stressed out, right? Trying to figure out where the next dollar was coming from. But if you're having less sleep, then your brain reduces executive function, which when you reduce executive function, you can't think, you're scattered brain. I was already PTSD. I was already suicide ideation and depression. And I mean, we were talking earlier, someone asked me, it's like, bro, do you always just have to have your foot on the gas? And the answer is yes. Because if I take my foot off the gas, depression is my disease, right? Suicide is my disease. If I take my foot off the gas, then all those negative thoughts and things start to creep in. It's like being an alcoholic. You're either an alcoholic or you're an alcoholic. If you ever were, it doesn't stop. It's just that they get chips for not drinking for a month, a day, a week, a year, 20 years, 30 years. I have a friend that has been in Alcoholics Anonymous. He's 64 years now, 31 years that he hadn't had a drink. Wow. But he still stands up and say, you know, my name is Mark and I'm an alcoholic. He just hadn't taken a drink in 31 years. Well, the truth is, my diagnosis was chronic depression. That means still you die. So until I die, this is the only time I'm going to take my foot off the gas, and I'm not going to take it off. Basically, when the light bulb is fully gone, my foot has to get off the gas, even though I'm just going to leave it floored, and the car might just drive into the ocean somehow because I'm not taking my foot off, right? So.
You say, like, I love Malcolm Gladwell and I love the 10,000 hour rule. I haven't read The Tipping Point. I probably should. And I want to read The Slight Edge now that you mentioned that too.
Oh, it's a great book, man.
Yeah, I believe it, especially if you reread it over and over for that long. You say that once you learn that, okay, like, hey, why aren't things happening fast enough for me? You're 4 years into network marketing and you realize, oh, wow, 10,000 hours. The more hours I can dump into this, the better that I can get, right? I feel that a lot of people stop way too early, or they don't see the massive wealth and results that they think they'll see based on the Instagram culture that they see with the Lamborghini and the nice house. And it's like, why isn't this happening fast enough for me? Like, there's 18-year-olds out there experiencing this, but really it's what you see. It's not what's actually being lived and experienced. When you were dumping all of your time into this, saying, okay, well, the closer I can get to 10,000 hours, the faster I can get there, the better. What specifically were you focused on as an entrepreneur when you were building up those 10,000 hours that served you most at that period?
Yeah. So the focus changed. At first, it was I needed to eat. So I had to learn sales very fast. And if I didn't make a sale a day, I didn't eat that day. So guess what? At the end of the day, a sale had to be made. It's funny what happens with humans. Elon Musk said this: if you give yourself basically a month to clean your house, it'll take a month. If you give yourself 3 hours, it'll take 3 hours. So I understood, like, listen, bro, you got to eat today. So you got to make 3 sales today so you don't have to feel the pressure tomorrow. Right. And all of it I realized is, like, I used to have this belief about sales and I had to change that belief. Most people don't like sleazy sales. Here's what they don't like. It's nothing to do with sales. People just don't like feeling pressured into doing something they don't want to do, or they wanted to do anyways, but they just wanted to feel natural. And then I realized, listen, sale just needed to be a transference of belief. If I can transfer my belief to you about this product, about this program, about something else, and you have that same belief, like, okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Then you will pay in exchange your hard-earned cash for the value you perceive or believe you're going to get from that product, that service, or whatever it is you're being sold. And sales is just really just having that conversation that clicks for you to make sense. So instead of trying to sell the product, I always try to find out what my clients' desires were and see if my product was a fit. If it wasn't, I'd be like, listen, I don't even think this is for you, but here's what I think might be beneficial for you, because I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you of something you don't need. My time was better spent finding the person who wanted what I have. And here's what I found in that. The moment I became real honest with myself and my clients, they were like, you know what? I got this person, they may be a good fit for you. So I started getting referrals. Like, cool. It was crazy, right? Because here's why. People want to be treated the way they deserve to be treated, or they believe they should be treated. And then a lot of times I had folks who's like, listen, I'm just going to get it anyways, because it's refreshing to find somebody just so honest that will tell me, like, this is probably not for you because of whatever. I go back and I'm like, man, right? So it was really cool to watch and learn that experience. But after the desire to eat, it became a desire to have a place to live. Because remember, I was living in my car, right? It was the desire to get a place to live. Then it became the desire to vacation as often as I want to and not have to worry about it. And then it became a new desire. My wife and I wanted to actually, which, by the way, she was my girlfriend for we were friends for 3 years. She was my girlfriend for 3 years. We got engaged 1 year. The entire time, we've never engaged in the horizontal mambo until we got married, if you know what I mean. No lost time, by the way, which is good. Oh, look, my little one just woke up. Yes, baby. Mommy's right out on the porch. Okay, go say hi. So, yeah, that Miracle. She just woke up. Normally she gets up probably around 11, but since I'm all excited and sound travel, she woke up like, ooh. But it was, my wife and I wanted to vacation for 18 months. Just that was our thing. We just wanted a vacation for like a year and a half and see how it feels and live in room service. And one of the things we forgot in that process was you need to schedule time to work out and do what needs to get done, because 18 months later, living on room service was 68 pounds heavier on my body. And then, you know, my daughters who grew up with us in the Marine Corps, you know, when I always had that nice 8-pack, I would tell them, like, listen, don't go to try to wash your clothes in the washer and dryer. You can wash them right here on these washboards. My daughter looked at me and said, Dad, you're fat. And your kids are brutally honest, bro. So my oldest told me that, and I looked at my wife and I was like, yep. That same night we got Insanity, and we went and did Insanity for 6 months straight, right? So to get back in the shape that we were. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons there. Any area of your life that you do not plan defaults to what you don't want, right? So that helped me in my cycle of creating my own system for managing myself to make workout a priority, which is when I get up in the morning. Imagine how the Marine Corps stayed in success for so long. First thing they do early in the morning, wake you up, work you out. So the body and the mind can actually meet on the same frequency, high. And when I kind of cut that out, guess where my frequency was? Low.
That's so true, though, because on the days that I don't work out, like this morning, I didn't work out because I'll work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But just the people I meet and even that I talk to on these broadcasts who are just so vibrant, they're like, I work out every day. It doesn't mean that I'm going like, you know, balls to the wall every single day. It means I'm moving my body, I'm sweating. And like what you just said, I've never heard it say that way. You align your body with your mind to get them on the same vibration. You can feel when your body isn't staying up to pace and up to speed with your mind. So that's so true. Well said.
Yeah, it was crazy as an entrepreneur. If you're to your audience, if you're ever frustrated, you have a decision, you have something you need to do, it's not happening. Stop, put everything down, go for a 20-minute walk, and then come back and see what happens. Your brain starts to fire. In fact, as you're walking, you're going to start having new thoughts, new ideas. The more you move your body, your brain starts to pick up. It starts to think. It starts to get out there. But don't try to, you know, walk and look at your phone and read or listen to something else. Just go and be with nature so that the thoughts come in. What you're doing is you're giving yourself an interruptive way to get things done. But here's the secret here. I'm going to lean in to tell you. The secret is as you move your body, it's like those old little cranks. You start cranking up the brain. So as your body gets in motion, the brain gets into this rhythm, and then all the ideas start to fly. So when you are done, you go and you sit back down. It's like your brain is like, listen, I don't know what happened, but we just sparked some energy and we need to go get this thing fixed. So let's get back to that problem. Then all of a sudden solutions start coming out of your head like you're a magician. So move the body, move the brain. When it's in sync, the frequency raise higher and you can't even stop yourself.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is the fact that you prioritize yourself over your business. And like you even said, your prioritizations go God and then you. And this whole idea of managing yourself and not your time is a reflection of you prioritizing you as the human being. Other than, so sleep, you mentioned is number one. Then you mentioned you immediately, you wake up, workout, right? What else is critical when it comes to you managing yourself that you might even call a non-negotiable, or like what else is in that system of yours?
So in that system, in the morning routine, so my clock goes from midnight to 8. That's sleep, right? 8 to 12 is morning routine. So in those 4 hours, that's my workout. That's my time with God. That's my time with my wife in the morning, do whatever. A non-negotiable is really connecting, tapping into my most trusted source in the morning. That's God and that's my wife, right? So once I get, it's not a confirmation from either of them. It's really just a reconnection. Right? Like, hey, we're picking up back off from where we left off yesterday. Let's just connect again. And I would share with my wife what's happening, what's coming for the day. It would be like, even with this interview, and she's like, so this is what an act of Congress looks like, right? This morning we got that done. And I'm like, yeah, right. So that starts things off on a lighter note for me. We're always connect first. Another non-negotiable is putting the best nutrients into your body, which is very easily observable into the body. So like I'm drinking coconut water right now, which is 22 times more hydrating than water itself. It's H3O. It is. If you do the research, you'll see it's crazy. You can live off coconut water, by the way.
Wow.
But I actually don't eat up until noon. I don't break the fast then. So it's a hyper fast, that vigilant. You sleep the entire night before. So from midnight to mid-noon, I'm fasting for 12 hours. That's when I'll eat something after noon. But in the morning, keeping the body less of food, then the brain is highly responding. So here's what happens. Your stomach doesn't eat. Your brain eats. So the stomach just holds food and break down those fluids, but the stomach has the exact same tapings or trappings as the brain. So there's the gut brain that really now uses stomach acids to dissolve the food and send the nutritional instruction or information to the brain to say, listen, we're full, we're good, you can function. So if you're putting like meat into your body early in the morning, if it's beef, let's say it takes between 6 to 8 hours to process that. So that nutritional instruction slows your body down. So your gut's doing all this work. It's not sending instruction to your mind, right? So if you're eating chicken, that's really 3 to 4 hours. If you're eating fish, it's pretty much 1 to 2. Veggies is literally about 30 minutes, but liquids is 30 seconds.
Wow.
So I'm drinking this, and it sends the nutritional instructions like, hey, we're ready to go. So the gut's not working, the brain is working. And then when it starts to taper off at lunch, when I start now for the third quadrant, which is work, 12 to 7 p.m., I could eat something and sit down because now I already know for the day the task that's at hand. I can go and do the task, and now I can actually nutrient dense support the body system so that now we can take that time and do whatever, because now I have something specifically to do. I have the plan. I know how I'm going to execute it. It's now just a mindless activity. So within that 6 hours, whatever I eat, the body breaks it down. Now I'm ready. From 7 to midnight is family time. So I can put good condensed light nutrients back into the body so I can go sleep. If you eat too much before you go to sleep, the body spends too much time breaking that down, right? So imagine this cycle now, you put in 10,000 hours of that. You get better at it. You get more focused at it. You start to learn and understand your body as it responds to your brain, and your brain responds to the body. So then you know how to actually dive in the right amount of instruction to yourself that you can take and know what to do. You start to learn yourself more. My body naturally now shuts off around 7. It's like, I don't want to do work anymore. I don't have the impulse to do it. It's just like, listen, unless there's something I knew that in the day I'm going to work through. Like when I have my mastermind weekends, I know I'm going basically from like 5 to 10 at night, right? When we do the immersive ones, I know it's from like 5 to midnight, right? And I get that sleep and come up, because the immersive ones is basically a boot camp. We're doing the same stuff the Marine Corps did to us, which is brainwash you for success, right? So folks go like, we go to your stuff and it's like you're brainwashing us. Yes, that's the point, right? We need to give you a new operating function, right? Think of the brain like a computer program. Most people are still operating on Windows 95, and they wonder why they can't function in 2022. Old beliefs, man. It's not.
I wanted to, we talked about the whole idea of the brainwashing, and, you know, some people are going to hear that and you might think like, oh, I don't want to be brainwashed. Right. And the reality, the same thing with hypnosis. Like I went to a hypnosis seminar with Dr. Richard Bandler years ago, and he talks about people are worried about hypnosis, but I'm not hypnotizing you. I'm almost dehypnotizing you from the natural hypnosis that this world is putting you in every single day. And when I heard that, I was like, whoa, like what can I intentionally be putting into my mind to help myself think and process in a different way? And when you brought up brainwashing, I'm like, okay, this idea of brainwashing for success is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what if you were going to brainwash me for success? Like, where do you start? Like, what are the different things that you are injecting into that person's psyche?
Well, first thing, by the way, Richard Bandler is pretty much the godfather of next level growth and achievement. Love his work, love what he does. So I'm right here with you, brother.
Yeah.
The first thing is we have to cause in psychology what we call cognitive dissonance with you, meaning that I have to show you the beliefs that you held before to the beliefs I'm sharing with you now. It's not only just a clash, which causes dissonance, but the new decision makes more sense logically than the old. For example, I have to show you some of the silly ones we used to believe, like, hey, my parents used to tell me money doesn't grow on trees, when in fact it really does. Money comes from the papyrus paper that does grow on trees that they take to a process to create it to be money, right? And for you to understand that everything in life and nature is energy. right? Energy, when you start breaking it down all the way down to the smallest molecule, it all breaks down to energy. Then you see how those things break down, and then they come and add back up. That this energy then relates back to thought, right? Thought is an energy. So the vision that you have is a vision of what can be. Like right now, you are talking to me here on something that was a thought to someone before, the internet. You're using that beautiful microphone that is projecting your voice clear and crisp. It was in the thought of someone before who thought about really personifying the voice and speech of someone else. The light that's lit on here was an idea, right? That idea, that thought into everything else that came in and took action and experimented over 2,000 times to create, oh, look, and the luminescent light bulb without candle flames. Hey, this is a whole new concept. This table I'm sitting was a thought, was an idea. And that person believed, they took action, they did the steps necessary to manifest that. So in changing your beliefs, giving you classes and then showing you, well, it doesn't matter what your belief system is towards money. Money is just the physical manifestation of value, right? Money follows value. So you don't get paid for what you do. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. So for example, to you, you're just chugging away from your water bottle. That water bottle storing water is of value to you, sitting there so that when you want to, like this can, I can drink this coconut water. Mm-hmm. Right. So a friend of mine was just telling me, says, Obama, I don't believe it, man. You're an island boy and you're always drinking coconut water from a can. I'm like, bro, it's the United States. I can find coconuts everywhere like I used to. Right. And they don't plant coconuts here like they do in Guyana in South America, where I'm from. I said, but I have to adapt and adjust and appreciate the dude who thought about putting it in a can so I can have it whenever I want to. Right. So it's changing belief systems. When you're looking at washing away the old beliefs and imprinting new beliefs, you have to give the client cognitive dissonance. Means two ideas have to clash in disbelief and show them, like specifically, that they think like, listen, you have to work hard to get it. Listen, you don't have to work hard. You have to work consistently, but you can leverage the amount that you work. So if it requires 1 million hours to create something, you personally could spend that 1 million hours doing it. And that's going to take you maybe a year or two, or you can get 10 people to bring it down into 6 months, or you can get 1 million people and finish it in an hour. Leverage. So the language of the wealthy is always leverage. In my relationship, my wife calls it leverage because I love her. She does whatever she wants. So it's really being able to change your belief system about outcomes, because the outcomes we want that we're not getting requires a different belief system. That belief is followed by action. Those actions create results. But if you stay consistent with the new belief, new actions, new results.
Yeah, that concept of leverage alone, like this conversation is built around the idea of how to build $1 million brand or $1 billion brand. And really, it's the same answer to build the million or the billion. It's what you just said. It's leverage. If you've got 1 million people working for you, it's going to be a lot easier to build $1 billion business and brand. You were building for some years before you discovered this concept of the 10,000 hours. You went all in on that. You managed yourself rather than manage your time, and you began to incorporate leverage. At what point would you say you started to realize the definition of success in the way that you thought about success? Like, when you began out in your entrepreneurial journey, did you create a definition? Like, did you know what success looked like for you? Like, was it money? Was it a feeling? What was it for you?
In the beginning, it was money. And then we made a lot of it. And I realized, well, that's not it. Then when I realized that, I actually stopped pursuing success, the different level. I started pursuing wealth. And then I started to realize, well, what really is wealth? It's not the financial freedom, it's mental freedom. The ability to think and do without the interruptions or the trappings of not having enough resources, money, friends, connections, collaborations, all these things, right? That you need. Then I created a more worldly definition of wealth, which is the ability at any time to do whatever you want to do, when you want to do it, and with whom you choose to do it with an abundance of resources. And so I always share with people that the definition of really understanding the difference between being impoverished and being wealthy is just a mismanagement of resources. We all have resources at our disposal, but we're not managing them correctly, right? Mm-hmm. Going back to the Bible, Adam didn't manage the resource of Eve as well as he should, which is why that resource got taken away from him. So you'll see a lot of folks will say, when you look at things spiritually, like, oh, the rich keeps getting richer. No, those are just better resource managers. So if you could manage $1 well, you're going to get $5 to manage. If you can manage $100, you're going to get 500, 1,000, 500,000 to manage. But if you're mismanaging it, why would you ever give in? Like, honestly, if you have 2 kids and you send them to do something and one of them is actually doing it better than you thought you would, who are you going to be prone to give more responsibility to?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And this, like, people get mad. They get upset at the wealthy. No, the first thing they did is they learned to manage themselves. They learned to manage themselves around time. They learned to take advantage of opportunities and situations, whereas most people kind of walk at it. So, for example, when we got connected through a resource that I actually invested time and money in to get me a connection in collaborations with you. Long story short, we end up having a conversation prior to this and build more of a relationship now, right? Who knows? The further we build this relationship, the law of 10,000 hours that we're going to put in a value with each other and see what happens. It may or may not go somewhere, but that's the responsibility of both you and I. And since I know that's a responsibility of you and I, if there's some things I like about you, I'm going to take the responsibility and follow up on that, right? We started talking, you mentioned, listen, hey, Dr. O, I like a couple of things that you're doing, man. I want to learn more of what you're doing. So it's going to be the responsibility of both of us to follow up on that. Some people just say things, which we call window dressing, but the actions, the consistent, persistent follow-up or the lack thereof is what's going to give them the opportunities.
Wow.
If we don't continue to act on it, guess what? It's like any language. If you don't practice it, you can't speak it anymore.
Wow.
Right? And success is a language. Wealth is a language. You have to keep speaking it.
My mind is blown. Just your ability to, number one, like, if you think about what we've accomplished just now in 52 minutes, like, right, we accomplished, someone could go from where they are now to $1 million brand just from this conversation.
Absolutely.
That's it. Absolutely. Just from this conversation, with the ideas of managing yourself, with the ideas of being a better resource manager. No one's talking about that. No one's talking about, and it goes along with what you hear about. Well, you want to be wealthy, but people have this innate belief, like what we've been talking about, of money is bad. People can see money as the root of all evil, but why would the universe want to give you more of something that you think is bad, that you think is evil? Would you want to spend time with somebody who thought you were bad or evil? You'd want to get as far away from that person as possible. Like, this conversation can help anyone listening go from where they are to where they want to go, because your goals might be very different than Dr. Obam's goals or my goals, and that's okay. But the strategies, though, and the beliefs and the systemology, it's all the same, right? No matter where you want to go. Yeah. And I want to respect your time, because we could talk forever. Your book, Today is the Day, does this encapsulate what we're talking about? And what was your inspiration when you wrote Today is the Day?
Yeah, absolutely. So Today's the Day encapsulates that 100% and beyond. So before I talk more about it, I got to tell you how I wrote the book. So because of my human behavior and psychology degree, I wrote the book on the subconscious level. Right. So it's broken down into 3 parts to really get the information. So when you read the book, and it's not a book, it's a manual, right? When you think about it. So it's a workbook. You have to read the book. Each chapter, there's 14 things that human beings do in transition for growth. So it's 15 chapters. The 15th is called Successful and Significant. When you do these things, you become successful and significant. Right. And basically, I wrote it at the subconscious level. So when you consciously read the book and you do the work, then you will get basically the first 30% of the information. And you might say, well, what? But that 30% is because you read the book and did the work. Now, the second part to release the other 50% is that you have to take the consistent actions until the change starts to happen and occur with all the things that you said, because it becomes your actual success guide. When you start to do that, that's 80%. That can be very good. Now, the remaining 20% is released when you actually make the changes in your life and the results start to show up, no matter how small it is. Now, why did I write it that way? Because there's some narcissistic people and personalities out there who can take the book and use it for evil. The truth is, the information in the book is the same stuff Hitler used to basically create Nazi Germany.
Wow.
I don't want to just put that information into somebody's hand. Narcissistic type personalities will not, even if I'm giving the secret right now, they will not go as deep and vulnerable as the book requires you to be to unlock the information. So, which means that you got to change your old narcissistic beliefs and personality to get the results that you want. Now, even if you get 20 to 30 or 50%, that's still enough to be dangerous, but you will never unlock true change and accountability, right? So one of the things you mentioned, people can understand in there about like the group of folks that say that money is evil. Well, it's not. It's the love of money, meaning that if you sell out anything for money, that's not good. However, money isn't bad. Money isn't evil. Money's just money. People are bad. People are evil. People have different intentions for things, and money only personifies more of the individual because it gives them choices through the resources that money can buy to be more of themselves. So money is not bad. It only personifies and relates to the world who that person is at their core, right? So, and the truth is, there's a lot of rich assholes out there. The world doesn't need any more, right? It needs more good people, and that's what the whole Today's the Day book was written for, is to help you kind of slow down to speed up, to go internally, to find your true call and your purpose, go through these 14 steps consciously for the first time, because 98% of us go through it. Like a lot of folks get to build multiple $million-dollar businesses, but they can't teach others to do it. What the book does is help slow you down to understand your process, your methodology, or your own modus operandi in a sense. So literally it's the secret to wealth. Which is one of the reasons why when we launched the book first, we sold over 42,000 copies. Great. And I said, you know what? I'm going to control the sale of it. So sorry, if you go on Amazon, you're not going to find it. You're going to find the audio version of it. But if you want it, you have to go through me. So we're really testing the caliber of folks now, which is why we give it as a gift in all our masterminds and the things that we do. But I wrote it that way because I'm like, listen, it's not about the money right now. It's about the change. And my goal is to impact 1 billion lives with that work, because I believe on first generation, if you impact one person, at least one person has 3 friends. That's 4 billion people. So within 2 generations, you could change the world, right? So that's my very ambitious goal with the book.
Wow. So before I ask you how we get our hands on a copy, because I know that there's a process to do so, which is awesome. I just got to say, I, in all my time doing this podcast so far, have never been more interested in a book that the guest has spoke about. And I got to say, that was beautiful, everything you just said. And I'm super curious now, and I want to read this book. How can someone get their hands on a copy of Today's the Day?
They can go to our website, which is theobmastermind.com. And over there's a link that'll say get the book. That's theobmastermind.com.
Okay. And links will be in the description for everyone watching and listening right now, theobmastermind.com, to go check out everything that Dr. Obam is doing, the change that he's creating. And I got to say, I'm better for knowing you than where
Same here, brother.
Every time I talk with you, man, I come away elevated from the conversation, and I'm just grateful that we recorded it this time. And I'm glad the world gets to share in the conversation. I think we need to record every conversation we have, even if we get 5 minutes of just gold. Absolutely. I know it'll be much more, but it was a pleasure having you on the show. My last question is, where I'm going to have links to all of Dr. Obam's socials, guys, in the comments, but where's the best place to follow you?
Well, right now, everybody is, gramming it up, right? You can find me on Instagram, here on LinkedIn or Facebook, all the same thing at Dr. Obam Bowen, right? So you find me. Instagram is where everybody is pretty much at these days. So even though I would love to say Facebook, because that's the one I understand the most, everyone is on Instagram. And that's actually, that's a last lesson for today. You don't really push the product or your beliefs that you want. You support that of your clients where they're at. So it's like if you're looking for clients and they're at the mall, why would you go to the movies? and then try to figure like where, like, because I like the movies, so I'm gonna go there and try to get them here. No, there's only so many of them are gonna go to the movies, whereas 97% of them will be at the mall. Go to the mall. If they're at the beach, go to the beach, right? Go where your clients go. Doesn't mean do what your clients do, just go where they are, right? And then maybe you put on your bullhorn telling them, hey, listen, I got the answer to the problem you're trying to solve, and I'm going to charge you for it. That's all it is.
Great piece of advice and a great way to end the conversation. Dr. Obon Bowen, it was a pleasure having you on the show, my friend. Thank you very much for your time and for your graciousness. Brother.
Pleasure. And by the way, I've been meaning to say the whole time, love your brand with Be Better, BE, Brandon Eastman. I'm like, you want to talk about symmetry and branding. It's just exciting, brother.
I appreciate that, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Like we just said, this conversation, if you literally just replay it like maybe 50 times, maybe 100 times, there's no doubt in my mind that you will build $1 million brand or $1 billion brand or whatever success means to you with your business or your career. You can do it when you shift the beliefs. You can do it when you focus on managing yourself rather than focusing on managing your time. You can do it when you have your priorities in order. And Dr. Obon Bowen gave you the strategies. He gave you the game plan. He literally is going to help you get your hands on the manual, which is Today is the Day. Again, links are in the description to go check out everything that we talked about, to go follow him on all of the platforms that he's on: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you hang out. He's going to be there hanging with you. I hope you took a lot out of this conversation with the doctor. And if you did, share this show with just one person who you know will take just as much away. And even if they don't, share the show anyway, because you never know who it might reach. You never know the impact it might create on them. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and listening or watching. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.